Hello, this is Daniel Mart back again. I am an actor and filmmaker based out of South Florida. And for this video, it is finally spooky season. It is finally October, so that means we're going to have a bunch of horror-themed videos across all of October. So I have about 5 or 6 set up for this month at least. Maybe a few more, we'll see what happens. But yeah, we're going to get a lot of horror videos this month out of me because, you know, again, October, why not? Let's go. So yeah, the first video for this season, and because it's the first day of October, hopefully, at least when I release this video, it's going to be the top 30 movies I think that should be on Criterion, or in the Criterion collection. Now, recently, I've been having kind of a love affair, so to speak, with Criterion. I've been really watching a lot of their Criterion Closet videos that they post on YouTube as well. I've been buying a lot of Criterion movies in the past 2 months, a lot more than usual, just because of some stuff that's going on here. If you look at my previous videos, you'll know that my favorite Barnes & Nobles has recently closed and another one has opened. Also, halfway through October, another Barnes & Nobles is going to open, so I'll probably get more Criterions. And that's on top of the fact that we have the flash sale that probably happens, that's probably going to happen later on this month, as well as in November, the Barnes & Nobles 50% off sale that's going to happen. So, a lot of stuff with Criterion. So, because of that, I kind of just wanted to do this video. It's something that I've been thinking about just in general, even outside of horror. Like, ooh, what movies should be on the Criterion collection? What movies should be on the Criterion channel? This, that, and the other. On top of that, there's a lot of movies that are on the Criterion channel that aren't necessarily part or in the Criterion collection, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's kind of why I want to discuss. Basically, what movies do I think should be on the Criterion collection, which should have a physical copy, you know, Blu-ray, DVD, 4K, and be on the actual collection so we can buy and purchase and see them for our own good and just, you know, have them here in the collection, like I have here, you know, right there, back there. So, actually, those are just DVDs. The Criterions are, and Blu-rays are in this section, but you catch my drift. So this is going to be a 2-part video. First off, I'm going to have just single movies that I think should be in the collection, and then the next video I'll have for you will be just collection. So, like, what movie series, what movie franchises, or what collection of movies should have it, because Criterion Collection, they also do that, where they just put a bunch of movies together and they'll have that as its own release. So whether it be 2 movies, just like the Val Lewin Collection, where it's just 2 movies, which is I Walk with the Zombie and The Seventh Victim, I believe, like that, or if they have just entire series, you know, like the Apu trilogy isn't horror, but so you kind of catch my drift, like entire series, or just the entire works of certain filmmakers, like anything on the Eclipse series, you know, and maybe have that. So that'll be for the next video, but this, I'm just going to talk about individual movies. So that's for starters. On top of that, these are all going to be movies I've seen, so I'm not going to mention a movie that I've never seen, even if it should be on the Criterion Collection. If a lot of people, if that's the general consensus, like, yes, this should be on the Criterion Collection, if I haven't seen it myself, I'm not going to comment on it because it just wouldn't make any sense to comment on it. And last but not least, for this list, I'm going to go in order of release. So basically, the earliest film to the most recent film. So I have movies here going as far back as 1920 to as recent as this year, 2025. So I have 30 movies to go through. And one last thing I'm also going to say, that for some of these releases, I'm also going to discuss why they may not be on the Criterion Collection, why they still haven't been released as part of the Criterion Collection. Discuss that, and maybe some other stuff, like what maybe special features could be included in some of these releases, hypothetically, if they were to come out. So yeah, let's start the list with the first movie I have, which is So, The Golem, or How He Came into the World, from 1920. I have my computer here, by the way, for my notes. So, The Golem, How He Came into the World, from 1920. So, this is actually the 3rd film in a trilogy, in an old silent series trilogy of movies. And this is the reason I point this one out specifically is because the other 2 movies, the first and the second movie in this trilogy, they're basically lost media. They don't exist anymore. There's a few scraps and stills from some of those movies, but essentially, this is the only movie left in this series. It's the only one that's the best formatted, so to speak. Is the one that's the most complete. When it comes to silent cinema, just in general, with the Criterion Collection, we don't really have that much in terms of that. We have stuff like The Phantom Carriage, of course, and Joan of Arc, but you know, there's a lot of like blind spots just in terms of silent cinema in general. Like, I'm kind of like one of the other things I'm kind of surprised is, like, I'm surprised Metropolis isn't there. I know it's not horror, but I'm surprised Metropolis, like, probably the best known silent film of all time, I'm surprised that's not there. So, you know, when it comes to horror, I think The Golem, or How He Came into the World, and given the fact that it's from this trilogy that basically no longer exists, I think that would be a very nice inclusion into the collection. I think the main reason it just hasn't been put in the collection is because Kino Lorber has its own release, and I'm not gonna lie, between Kino Lorber and Arrow is probably the biggest reason why a bunch of these things, especially the earlier ones, are not part of the Criterion Collection, because I don't really think that they'd want to compete with other boutique labels when it comes to the movies they have. That, yes, it happens on occasion, don't get me wrong, but when they're gonna put their stamp on something, they're really gonna put their stamp on something. And I think the Kino Lorber, which I'm pretty sure I have the Kino Lorber version of it, I think they have a pretty good release of that movie, and with all the special editions, behind the scenes stuff. That's why I think the main reason I don't think they've done this for the Criterion Collection. But again, if they ever do this, I think 100% they should probably include like some behind the scenes stuff, or like a behind the scenes documentary on trying to maybe recover the footage for this film to begin with, and two, like just them discussing the other two films in this series and how that has impacted cinema and stuff like that. So I think that'd be a very good inclusion for the special features. That's what I mean, the special features for this. And I also think that they could do a pretty good release for the 4K as well. They could do what they did with like Hacks and I want to say Joan of Arc and Phantom Carriage, where they have like the regular DVD and Blu-ray, it's just a regular case like we all know, but with the 4K they could give it that special slipcover that they often do when it comes to 4Ks. So I think they could do that too. Okay, next up at number 2, another 1920 movies, we have The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. I think similar to Gollum, I think the main reason this hasn't been released is because I'm pretty sure Kino or Arrow Video has their own version of this, so they've released it. And honestly, for the special features for this movie, I think they could do a lot of stuff in regards to some of the older short films that either Conrad Veidt, which is who is in this movie, or the director Robert Wise. I think they could add maybe some of the short films, some of the silent short films that they worked on during this time. And even then, I'm using short a little bit loosely because Conrad Veidt especially, short films sometimes could be anything between 45 to 60 minutes. So it's like, it's in that weird in-between section of, is it a movie, is it not a movie, is it a short film, is it not a short film? It's kind of in that weird in-between section. Santana, I believe, is probably the best one that will work under this format, to be honest with you, if they were included as a special feature. But yeah, I mean, again, Cabinet Dr. Caligari, I would say outside of maybe Metropolis, this is probably the best known silent film in general, outside of maybe Metropolis and maybe the next one I'm going to discuss right afterwards. I think this would be a great addition to the Criterion Collection, especially with horror. And honestly, I'm kind of surprised they don't have this, even more so than Gollum, because the Gollum, that one's a little bit more underground, so to speak. But Caligari, that one's known for defining German expressionism. So I'm kind of surprised that this one, even more so than Gollum, hasn't been added into the collection in any way, shape, or form. Next up, a film from 1922, which would be So yeah, 1922, we have Nosferatu, A Symphony of Horror, the original one. Yeah, and this was one that, similar to Caligari, I'm kind of surprised they haven't included this one in the collection at all. Part of it has to do with the fact that Kino also has a stake in this regard, but I feel like for this one, it wouldn't matter that much that Kino has a stake in this one, because first off, Nosferatu, just the general story of Nosferatu has been adapted several times over. I mean, even last year we had Nosferatu by Robert Eggers. We've of course had the Werner Herzog version of it, so we like Nosferatu as a story. In general, is one that's been seen in cinema time and time again. So I don't think the Kino Lorber of it all, having its own release of it, should affect it that much. I think for this one, we could also have a documentary as a special feature, a documentary about the whole crazy lawsuit situation of how Bram Stoker's widow, she wanted every copy of Nosferatu destroyed. Maybe you could have a really cool documentary in regards to that. I think that'd be pretty cool. But yeah, Nosferatu, A Symphony of Horror, I mean, I think that'd be a great inclusion into the collection in general. Okay, and then the next movie we're going to go is from 1933, and that is So yeah, King Kong. I'm gonna say King Kong should be part of the Criterion Collection. It's always kind of random when you have some of these more popular films in general just be included into the collection. I mean, right now, Pee-wee's Big Adventure just got announced as being part of the Criterion Collection. RoboCop is one that's in the collection. Armageddon is probably one that a lot of people are like, really, that's in the collection? So I think King Kong, that's one of those that I think is popular enough that will make sense to be in the collection, especially more so if Godzilla is already in the collection, and not just Godzilla, but like the first 15 Toho Godzilla movies. Just because of that alone, and of course we have King Kong versus Godzilla. That's been a plot for several movies across the decades. Even as recent as a few years ago. Just having the original King Kong alone, I think, would be a great addition to the collection. I mean, again, you already have Godzilla, so you might as well have his counterparts Honestly, I mean, honestly, they could do a similar thing they did with the Godzilla, where they have the first 15 movies of Godzilla. They could do the same thing where they have the first 15 movies of King Kong. You know, it would be King Kong, Son of Kong. I think eventually you'll get to King Kong versus Godzilla, at least one of them. So I think that would be a very cool collection. Granted, I think of it, would King Kong have that many movies in its series? I don't know, but like having at least a decent box set would be good. But even then, just having at least the original King Kong would be great. Maybe what they could do, because they have done this with other releases of King Kong, where they do King Kong and Son of Kong. Maybe that'd be a pretty interesting collection. Or maybe have Son of Kong as a special feature, similar to how Shaft has the sequel as a special feature, similar to how Petite Mamie has My Life as a Zucchini as a special feature. You know, maybe they could do something like that, where Son of Kong is actually a special feature on the overall King Kong release. I think that's another good thing they could do. And then overall, you know, just have a bunch of documentaries and behind the scenes special features or whatever about how the making of King Kong, and you know how they showed a gorilla of that size, of that stature. I mean, I think that'd be great. Now, the next movie, we're gonna skip a couple decades. We're going from 1933 to 1960, and that is because we're gonna have Psycho, the original, like truly the original proto slasher. So yeah, we jumped from 1933 to 1960 for Psycho. And here's the thing, they have a bunch of Alfred Hitchcock movies on their collection as is. So I would say like just them having the pinnacle Hitchcock film of Psycho, I think that alone should qualify it for being part of the collection. I mean, and let's be honest, Psycho is a staple of the horror genre just in general. It's one that's influenced people, it's one that's influenced movies, it's the one that influenced the genre as a whole. Again, there's a reason why Psycho is called the prototypical slasher. Before slashers like Halloween and Black Christmas and the early slashers from the 70s, before those even walked, this one crawled, so to speak. So like, this is the slasher to beat all slashers, so to speak, or this is the birth of the slashers in a sense. So like, honestly, the fact that they don't have Psycho in the collection, and especially given the fact of how many Hitchcock films they have in the collection, this one's kind of surprising. Now granted, I could have also populated the list with a bunch of other Hitchcock films like The Birds, North by Northwest, etc, 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 but like, I just want to do it just Psycho. Maybe down the line I'll talk about other Hitchcock movies that should be in the collection, but I think for now, Psycho is the one to discuss when it comes to horror defining movies. It is Psycho. Because of that alone, I think it's crazy that Psycho hasn't gotten a release on the Criterion collection, to buy physical media. I mean, on top of that, you can also have documentaries on just Anthony Perkins alone. Maybe have some special features about Anthony Perkins and how that was kind of a interesting experience, to put it lightly, in regards to him, and not necessarily coming out, because for those who don't know, Anthony Perkins was gay, but like how that struggle of keeping something inside and how he related to that in the character as well. Maybe have a documentary of how when he returned to Psycho, because remember, because Psycho is not just Psycho, Anthony Perkins did do a series of Psycho movies afterwards, Psycho 2, 3, 4, The New Beginning, or whatever it was called. So, maybe you could have a few documentaries on that. I'm not sure if I would go as far as to have like at least Psycho 2 as a special feature, because I almost feel like Psychos 2, 3, and 4, like they kind of bleed into each other, like one after the other. So I mean, maybe not on that one, but so I mean, maybe have a few documentaries on that. That'd be great. Also maybe have some reactions, because there's a lot of reactions to Psycho when it first came out. So maybe stuff like that. Oh, definitely the trailer, because the Psycho trailer is like, it's so original too. The trailer for Psycho, because really the trailer for Psycho, it's not really them showing clips of the movie or whatever. It's more so Alfred Hitchcock going around the set of the Psycho house, the Bates Motel and the Bates house, and him taking a short. Like, that was actually the trailer for Psycho, if I'm not mistaken, or at least one of the trailers for Psycho. So like, they could also do something like that too. I think that would be great for special features. Next up, we have a movie from 1963, and that would be The Haunting. So The Haunting, I think, is one of the most underrated horror movies of all time. I think definitely it's one that really made a splash when it first came out, and then over time it's just kind of been forgotten, especially in the pantheon of supernatural horror, especially compared to some of the other ones that we're going to be discussing later down the line here. I think it's one that's just kind of been forgotten. There was a remake in the early 2000s, or late 90s, early 2000s, which it wasn't bad, but it was like, it's not going to compare to the original. You know what I mean? So there's that. And if I'm not mistaken, it's also the same. I'm pretty sure the source material is also the same from Haunting at Hill House or Bly Manor or whatever, like one of those Netflix series. I forget which one, but I'm pretty sure it's also the same concept. or same source material from that. So there's also that. I mean, I wouldn't say you could include that in the special features, but you know, just people are familiar with the story enough. So I'm kind of surprised that this one, given how iconic it is, where it began, I'm surprised at how underrated it's become over time. That's what I'm trying to say. Definitely a bunch of special features. Again, similar to Psycho, you could definitely have a few like LGBT behind the scenes stuff, because there is a lot of lesbian subtext within the story. So maybe you could have somebody discuss that. You know, whether it be somebody from back in the day or modern day. You know, giving their thoughts on it. That's neither here nor there, but I think that would be a really great thing. So yeah, I think that would be a great addition into the collection. Next up, we jump into the 70s, 10 years to 1973, because now we have The Exorcist. Yeah, I'm sorry, like, similar to Psycho, this is one of those pinnacle horror movies that, like, it really should be in the collection. Like, I'm sorry, this is one of those pinnacle horror movies that, like, really should be in the collection, no matter what. It's kind of unfathomable that The Exorcist isn't in the collection. It's honestly kind of crazy. For special features, what can you have here for special features? I mean, I think there's The Exorcist, more so than any other horror movie in existence, it's probably one of those horror movies, not even probably, it just is one of those horror movies where it's often debated, is this a Christian film or is this not a Christian film? And I think you could definitely have a bunch of just special features or special documentaries, whatever, just discussing that, or maybe having people interview like a pastor versus, I don't know, like a film historian or whatever, like debating as to what the merit of this movie is in regards to Christianity. I think that would be just an exquisite special feature, like right off the bat, especially me who's a Christian. And you know, here's a sneak peek into a future video. This is gonna be one of the videos I do later down this month. Is The Exorcist a Christian movie? I'm gonna definitely discuss that, but that's one I have to do some research on, because again, that's one that runs gambit. Some people staunchly say it is not a Christian movie because of the simple fact that it talks about demons and it's a horror movie, whereas some people say, no, it definitely is a Christian film because it talks about the Bible, it talks about people's belief in God and these demons of Azusa and this and the other. And there's people who are like kind of split in the middle where they either don't care or they say it's not a Christian film but has Christian values in it and stuff like that. So that's one I'll have to do a lot more research on. But yeah, I mean, just with The Exorcist, again, similar to Psycho, it's a pinnacle horror movie. Speaking of pinnacle horror movies, we're gonna jump into 1975 with Jaws. I mean, honestly, if they're going to release a Jaws Criterion at any point, it would have been this year with the 50th anniversary. That's for starters. Now, look, I'll be completely honest. I'm not the biggest fan of Jaws. I'm going to lay out right there. And the reason I'm not the biggest fan of Jaws, for me, has to do with the fact that I feel that once the three guys, they go off on the boat to search for the shark, I feel like all the tension from the movie has essentially dissipated. However you say that word, you know, disappeared, whatever. I feel like the most interesting part of the movie is when they're in the town and they're having the discussions with all the citizens of the town, with the mayor. I feel like those conversations are way more interesting than whatever's going on in the boat for like the last, I don't know, 45 minutes of the film. That's just my opinion. That being said, I still respect Jaws immensely for what it did. I mean, it's the blockbuster movie. You can't talk about other blockbuster movies like The Avengers, for example, without talking about Jaws. Like, this is the blockbuster movie to beat all blockbuster movies, no matter what. And I'm not talking about, like, financially, again, because then that honor goes to Avatar or the Avengers films. But this movie started the concept of blockbusters, similar to how Psycho started the concept as a prototypical slasher movie, similar to how The Exorcist is just one of those pinnacle horror movies, similar to how Cabinet Dr. Caligari, Nosferatu, and Gollum are like some of the earliest horror movies that landed and that meant something to the genre. Like, again, this is one of those films that means something to the genre. So I definitely do think that they should have a Jaws Criterion. And again, this year would have especially been the perfect time to release it because it is the 50th year anniversary. On top of that, you know, you can have a lot of behind the scenes stuff. Now, granted, here's the thing. Jaws is, again, also one of those movies, because it's so big, it's been released so many different ways across so many different labels. I wouldn't be surprised if if Arrow Video, more than likely has some kind of release of Jaws, because they probably have like a Jaws 1 through 4 collection or something like that. Like, that wouldn't surprise me. So like, I would not be surprised if if Jaws has been done to death, but I think Criterion could really do something special with Jaws in the collection. You know, again, have a bunch of behind-the-scenes stuff. Maybe ask Spielberg about more stuff about Jaws. Maybe make a whole new documentary in regards to like, oh, like the Jaws effect, or like, you know, like maybe a behind-the-scenes video or a special feature or whatever about Jaws' effect on blockbusters. What is Jaws' effect on like actual sharks and the beach culture, like, because Jaws affected a lot of stuff. You know, what has its cultural effects been over time? I think that could be a really, really great documentary right there. I mean, overall, you know, and of course you'll have a bunch of special features, you know, about how Bruce the Shark and how, you know, reports are that he didn't want to cooperate, so to speak. You know, you got documentaries on that, but I think a really good documentary on how just Jaws has affected cinema, pop culture, real culture, so to speak, in the past 50 years. I think that would be incredible. Next up, also from 1975, we have the Rocky Horror Picture Show. So I kind of wanted to pick, there's a few picks here that are a little bit out of left field. I think there's one more pick here that's way more out of left field than Rocky Horror, but I feel like Rocky Horror, that's a pretty out of left field pick as is. I mean, here's the thing, out of any other movie here, there's maybe one other movie here that you could classify as a musical, and the other one here, it's kind of musical-ish, whereas this is a musical. And here's the thing, how many other horror musicals do you know? You know, I mean, there's stuff like Anna and the Apocalypse, Phantom of the Opera 2005, of course, but like, I would say when you're talking about horror musicals, you think about Rocky Horror Picture Show. You know what I mean? So I think this will be this is the pinnacle of horror musicals. So you do have horror musicals, but I think this is the horror musical beats all horror musicals. And you could definitely make another documentary similar to Psycho, similar to The Haunting, on how this affected LGBT, not rights, but like the LGBT community. Because this is like this above any other movie here. I would say that I have on the list. This is definitely the most. Definitely the most kinkiest. That's for damn sirs. Definitely the most kinkiest movie across the board here, and it's definitely the most sexually liberating movie, so to speak, if that makes sense. Which I do think why I'm making a documentary behind how this affected the LGBTQ community would be actually very great, especially more so how it affected pop culture. Because for those who don't know, the other thing with Rocky Horror Picture Show is that, well, first off, when it first came out, it wasn't that popular right off the bat. There was a lot of screenings of it back in the day, even till now to a certain degree. Although the script on it has kind of changed, but very early on, there's a lot of screenings of it where people were just roasting it and like throwing spoons at it and whatever. And now that has become a tradition when watching Rocky Horror Picture Show because its reputation has increased over the years. And yet some of those more, I don't know what to call it, antics from back in the day, they've kind of bled in as part of the history of this movie. And I think making a documentary in regards to that would be great. Another thing with this, you could make a documentary, a special feature based on the sequel. So there's always been a rumored sequel script that's always been floating around, and people have always wanted to try to make it. I actually know personally someone who made like a short story based on that sequel, funny enough. So maybe they could do like a behind the scenes documentary on that as well, discussing the sequel or the potential of a sequel. Definitely have Tim Curry there just like discussing all that, and of course just having some behind the scenes stuff about the music itself and the making of the movie. That'd be great. But I mean, Rocky Horror Picture Show, again, it's not like your like typical horror movie with like Psycho and The Exorcist, like your downer horror movie, so to speak. Like, this is a lot more fun, a lot more out there. But I think having a film like this that's so out there would also be a benefit to the collection. Now for the next movie, we just have to jump 1 year later to 1976, and that is so yeah, The Omen. I think the main reason The Omen doesn't have a Criterion collection to it, the main two reasons. One, there's already a collection for The Omen, for the entire Omen series, Omens 1, 2, and 3, plus the remake from like 2005. There's already a collection of, which I have actually, where, you know, they have that Blu-ray, and that's been the pinnacle, from my understanding, from what I've seen, that's been the basic, the most comprehensive Omen collection there is. So I think that's the main reason why The Omen hasn't been on the Criterion. And on top of that, I feel like The Omen is very much overshadowed by The Exorcist. If I'm being honest with you, I almost feel like you can't talk about The Omen without talking about The Exorcist. You can talk about The Exorcist without talking about The Omen, but you can't talk about The Omen without talking about The Exorcist. And that's what I've generally figured out, if I'm being honest with you. I think we should give Omen its final dues, honestly. Like, let it have its time in the sun. And next year will be its 50th anniversary. So, you know what? If they want to do The Omen Criterion, 2026 would be a great year to do it, honestly. So why not have it be The Omen? Let's see The Omen. For behind the scenes stuff, I mean, I think similarly to like The Exorcist, similar to like even Rocky Horror, you could have it where how has this movie affected pop culture in general? And I think the biggest indicator of how it's affected horror movies and horror pop culture is actually through Final Destination, especially the first one. Final Destination, the concept of like discovering people's deaths through like images and through signs. That's a concept that they straight up just ripped off from The Omen, like full stop. It's one of those things that Final Destination 3 basically does a copy and paste of that format, where instead of, you know, the visionary getting like visions or a sensation, like in 1 and 2, no, in number 3 they literally just take a picture. Okay, your death is being portrayed in this picture. That's basically what The Omen does. So I feel like they could maybe do a documentary like linking The Omen to Final Destination. That would be honestly kind of a wild documentary, honestly, or like special feature, honestly. I'd honestly love to see that. So I don't know, do that. Next up, also from 1976, we have Carrie. I'm not gonna lie, Carrie is probably my favorite Stephen King movie. It's between Carrie and Christine. Or at least horror movie. Let me rephrase that. Between that and Christine, The Mist is up there. But if I'm being honest with you, I saw Carrie and Christine when I was like a lot younger, so it holds more of a special place in my heart than The Mist, if that makes sense. And then of course we have stuff like Shawshank Redemption and The Green Mile, which I mean those are incredible, but they're not horror. You know what I mean? So yeah, but between his Stephen King stuff, all the Stephen King stuff, my choice would be Carrie. Honestly, it's probably it is the most long lasting one. You could definitely do some documentaries or behind the scenes stuff in regards to Lori Piper and how she came back and basically dominated that movie in a sense and won the Oscar again. Like her last role was like 20 years beforehand and she won an Oscar. She took a sabbatical for like about 20-25 years, comes back in Carrie and wins another Oscar. Like that alone could be a special feature in of itself. Also, you know, just having Sissy Spacek and her journey and discovering herself through this character, I think that'd be a great thing as well on the special features. I mean, you definitely have a bunch of special features. Definitely have like Stephen King interview. That'd be fantastic. I would love to see Carrie. I think the main reason we don't have Carrie is because I'm pretty sure Arrow Video or Shout Factory, remember that? I think one of Arrow or Shout Factory, I forget which one. They have like a very cool Carrie box set already, or like a very cool release of Carrie as is with a very cool slipcover and all this. And I think they have it for like the whole series. So it's Carrie 1, Carrie 2, Carrie 3, the remake from like 15 years ago, I think, at this point. So I think that's the main reason that it hasn't been done. I'll be honest, I don't think there's any, I mean, to begin with also, I don't think there's any Stephen King movies on the Criterion Collection. Not that I can think of off the top of my head. Because Christine's on it, not there. Shawshank, Green Mile, Stand By Me, The Mist, like, I'm trying, like, Misery. Yeah, I can't think of another. Oh, Misery. Wow, I forgot about Misery. I don't even have that song on the list. Wow, my bad. There we go. I guess honorable mention, Misery. Yeah, I don't think they have any other Stephen King movies on the Criterion Collection to begin with. So, I mean, Carrie would be a great starter right off the bat. If we're talking about just strictly horror. If we're talking about just in general, I think Shawshank should probably take that honor, but that's just me. Next up, from 1977, we have Suspiria from 1977. And here's my argument for this. And first off, it's Suspiria. It's one of those iconic movies, and I think similar to The Haunting, it's one that really blew up when it first came out, and just over time it's kind of been forgotten. I would say it got a boost a few years ago after Luke Guadagnino's Suspiria remake, which I actually think I do like that Suspiria remake, but it's one of those things that both movies are kind of like starkly different, and so it's one of those things like, which one do you prefer? But it's not like one is better than the other. It's not necessarily in that context. The main reason I said Suspiria, and even then this is kind of a controversial reason, is because they don't really have any Giallo movies in the collection. They have a bunch of Giallo movies in the Criterion channel, but not as part of the Criterion collection. That being said, a lot of people don't really consider Suspiria to be Giallo to begin with. So there is that. So like, that was my original reason for picking Suspiria. And honestly, I still do think they should have some Giallo movies as part of the collection. But even if we're just going to say Suspiria Light, or, you know, Giallo adjacent, or not Suspiria Light, Giallo Light or Giallo adjacent movies, I think Suspiria would be the prototypical one to go, like similar to like that. Similar how to Psycho isn't technically a slasher, but it is very prototypical to what the slashers become. I think this is kind of falls in the same vein. Even though it's not Giallo, it's very prototypical to what Giallo will eventually become. And I think that's the main reason you could have that. And I definitely do think you could have some like Giallo inspired documentaries of how Suspiria probably influenced X amount of giallo movies and stuff like that, or something on Dario Argento as well. I think that would make sense. And I think the main reason this hasn't been done, on top of that, aside from just their outright exclusion of giallo movies or giallo-like movies, is because Arrow Video and Shout Factory definitely have a claim on the giallo genre in general. Like, they have box sets dedicated to just giallo, so I think that's the main reason why. And Suspiria would definitely fall under one of those banners. Next up, we have from 1978, we have hey, Halloween, might as well. Psycho, the prototypical slasher. Halloween is the slasher. Like, that is the slasher to beat all slashers. Yes, you could argue that this slasher is better than that slasher, but it all began with Psycho. And then it hopped over to Halloween. Granted, Black Christmas was there, but let's be honest, not many people recognize Black Christmas. So we go from Psycho to Halloween about 18 years later. Do I even need to say why this should be in the collection? I think this would be kind of a wild pick. This kind of goes back to the King Kong arguments, where sometimes you just need to have a popular movie. Same thing with Rocky Horror. Sometimes you just need to have a popular movie, just throw it there on the collection, as random as it may be, have at it. Halloween, there you go. And you could, the amount of special features, special documentaries you can have about this movie, from the score to the making to everything in between, how there's possibly copycat killers even afterwards, and like how this affected pop culture, the legacy of the Halloween franchise. Just go wild on this. Like, I think this would be incredible. Maybe if they really want to go kind of buck wild with it, maybe add Halloween 2 as a special feature. I think that would be kind of crazy. I want to say that I want to say that Carpenter also has a few short films even before this, so maybe include them as part of the special features. So I think that'd be pretty cool, honestly. But like, honestly, yeah, just have the definitive horror film, have the definitive slash film in the collection. That'd be amazing, and people would buy that in a heartbeat. Next, from 1981, so now we're jumping into the 80s. From 1981, we have from 1981, we have An American Werewolf in London. So yeah, this isn't the first werewolf movie in general. We do have The Werewolf of London, I believe it's called, from like the 40s, I want to say. And I think even around that time, we got, The Wolfman, which we'll discuss in my other Criterion Collection video, which will come out after this video. But yeah, that's why I haven't discussed any of the Universal monsters yet. But I think when it comes to werewolf movies, and just to give it some kind of representation, I definitely do think that this would be the one, An American Werewolf in London. I mean, it's the outside of the Wolfman, it's the werewolf movie to beat all werewolf movies. And I mean, also, you also have to remember that this movie, if I'm not mistaken, it's the reason why we have the Best Special Effects Academy Award, Oscar, I believe. It's between this or like The Elephant Man. I forget if The Elephant Man's the reason and this is the first one that won it, or... But, like, this has a very, even for the Academy Awards, this is a very integral movie for its history. It helped usher in a new award category that we hadn't seen at that point, So I think just because of that alone, and having a, like, behind-the-scenes featurette based on how it influenced the Academy Awards and how it was one of the first winners, having that as a feature would be just incredible. Of course, having some behind-the-scenes stuff on how they actually made the makeup and all the body horror stuff for the movie, I think that would be incredible as well. So you could definitely do a lot of stuff with it. And honestly, again, outside of the Wolfman, this is the pinnacle werewolf movie to beat all werewolf movies. I mean, every single, even more so than Wolfman in this regard, every single werewolf movie since American Werewolf in London has been trying to replicate that transformation scene. Everybody tries to make something new with the transformation scene, and let's be honest, nearly none of them can really match up to what Rick Baker did in American Werewolf in London. I mean, outside of the Wolfman, this is the werewolf movie to beat all werewolf movies, so you might as well have it in the collection. And again, it is a bit more of a popular pick, again, similar to Halloween and King Kong and some of these other movies. It is a more popular pick, and sometimes you do need to have that popular pick in your collection. Next, from 1987, we jump to 1987, and that is from 1987, we have Predator. Yes, the original Predator. And just very fast, I'm not going to have aliens in this. At least not in this video. in the next video, we'll discuss Aliens. But for this, I think Predator, just the first one, is okay to have in the collection. Maybe they could do a special feature thing like Shaft, where they include Predator 2 as a bonus feature, so to speak. But I think the main thing here will just be the original Predator. And, I mean, this is definitely a horror movie. You know, horror action movie, sure, but still horror. For starters, you definitely have to make a behind-the-scenes documentary or whatever in regards to how this is so heavily intertwined with Aliens. I think that would just be undeniable just right off the bat. And then past that, you know, just have a bunch of stuff in regards to like how maybe have some like commentary with Arnold Schwarzenegger. That'd be great. I mean, that would be great, you know? I mean, just imagine Arnold Schwarzenegger in the Criterion Collection. I mean, that also alone, Arnold Schwarzenegger in the Criterion Collection, that would be bonkers. I remember there was an April Fool's joke several years ago, maybe even almost a decade ago, where for April Fools, they said, oh yeah, we're going to have Kindergarten Cop as part of the Criterion Collection, and people lost their minds. Some people really enjoyed that, and really wish it happened. Some people were like, are you mad? You know, are you guys dumb? So just imagine actually having an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie as part of the Criterion Collection. I think that'd be great. And I do think that Predators is probably his best pick out of the bunch. Outside of Terminator, honestly, which, again, we'll discuss that next week as well. Like, outside of Terminator and maybe, like, a dark horse like Maggie. Well, and even then, I feel like Maggie will be more of a Janus pick than Criterion, so, like, their offshoot. I honestly think Predators is probably their best shot at having Arnold in the collection, from what I can think of. I mean, that'd be pretty wild. Just gonna say, imagine Predators, Criterion, that'd be pretty. And I think they'd do some wild stuff with it too. Like I think that's another one where it'll probably get like for the 4K. I think that one, it's one that's gonna get some real special casing on top of it, like a real cool slipcover to go alongside with it. So I think that's one that you could go. And again, maybe add Predator 2 as a bonus feature, but don't advertise it as like Predators 1 and 2, I guess, if that makes sense. Yeah, now next up, from the next year, 1988, here's another out of left field pick for me, and that is Killer Clowns from Outer Space. Yeah, I don't care. Like, just give me some cheese. Give me some cheese movie. Like when you want to talk about some cheesy ass movies, some cheesy, what the hell are we doing here type of movies. For me, that's between Killer Clowns and Chopping Mall. Like, those are the cheesiest horror movies for me, and I just love them. I didn't have Chopping Mall. I didn't have the heart to put Chopping Mall because I think that'd be a step too far. If I'm being honest with you, but Killer Clowns, that is one that honestly should be in the collection. Again, it's a very out there pick. It's a very popular pick. You know, if you love horror and if you know horror, and if you like some random cheesy cult horror films, like this is probably one of those cult horror movies that you need to watch. Killer Clowns from Outer Space. I mean, why not? Honestly, why not? I mean, the Chiodo brothers, they're similar to Rick Baker and Greg Nicotero in the sense, and Tom Savini in the sense that, like, they've done special effects for several movies. But unlike them, where Baker, Nicotero, Savini, where they regularly direct or directed stuff, the Chiodo brothers, this is their only directorial effort at all. So, I mean, I think even because of that, even that alone should give them a almost foot up, if that makes sense, or like a bigger reason as to why this should be in the Criterion Collection. I mean, there's always been rumors of Killer Clowns 2. That's always been a thing, but that's never come into fruition. We do have the video game. There was a video game that came out, I want to say, a year or two ago. So maybe they could discuss that in the special features. But honestly, just for the special features, just give me the commentary. Give me some commentary. Maybe if they did some short films, give me some short films that they did. And from there, just give me a documentary on how the set building and how they did the costumes and all that. Just give me that. I think the main reason they haven't done this is because Arrow has a pretty cool steelbook. Arrow or Shout Factory, one of them two, or maybe both of them. I'm pretty sure it's Shout Factory because Shout Factory has this pretty cool steelbook. I'm pretty sure that's the main reason why they haven't done it, and also because it's Killer Clowns. Like that, I feel like that's a step too far for them for the Criterion. But if they ever did it, it'd be wild, and I would be all here for it. Next. Next up, from 1990, we have Jacob's Ladder, the original. And honestly, like, when you want to talk about psychological horror, this, for me, like, this is one of those movies that it is just so scary. For me, this is one of the scariest films, like, bar none. This is one of the scariest films for me. Like, it's just so psychologically horrific, and what the character goes through. And here's the thing, not many people would consider this a horror movie, really straight up. A lot of people would probably say that this is kind of like a proto-war movie, because it kind of is. But realistically, this is a psychological horror through and through. It's kind of insane that not many people really have seen this movie as much as they should. I feel like this is another movie that's very much underrated that not many people really talk about. And I feel like if it were to be put on the collection, people will definitely talk about it like 100%. I'm not really sure what special features you would have here, aside from like your general like director commentary and stuff like that. But I'm pretty sure they could find some stuff, maybe some general behind the scenes stuff. I think that'd be good. But like I feel like just having Jacob's Ladder on the collection in general would be great. I almost feel it'd be similar to like The Others, where I didn't know that The Others was on Criterion until I picked it up. It's a great movie, but I didn't realize it was on Criterion. I think Jacob's Ladder could have a similar experience if it were on the collection, where maybe people don't really know it that much, people don't really search for it for one reason or another, but now it's on the collection and people want to look for it, people want to watch it, people want to buy it, this, that, and the other. So I think its stock would definitely go up, and it would be respected as it should be respected, honestly. So yeah, Jacob's Ladder, that's one I really think they should do. Alright, next up, these next few movies are all going to be slashers. So yeah, we're getting to some slasher-filled stuff right now. First off, we have Candyman from 1992. First off, Tony Todd died this year, so like I think that alone should like qualify it for getting a Criterion release. That alone. But I also feel like when it comes to the slashers, I feel like Candyman is one that's often forgotten. Like we all think of Michael Myers, we all think of Freddy Krueger, Chucky, Ghostface, Jason. We all think about these people, but I feel like when it comes to like the big slashers, I feel like Candyman is the one that's often forgotten, if I'm being completely honest. So I think having Candyman right after that would be great. Also, like, it's a black horror movie, and it's a movie that really talks about like actual systemic issues that we still persist to this day about gentrification and the erasure of black and African descent and culture and all that. So I really do think that's one that really could be in the collection. It'd be great. And it is all things considered, it is a very much a pinnacle horror movie, regardless of how you feel about it. Again, similar to Jacob's Ladder, I almost feel like this is one that would actually be where its stock would increase if it were part of the collection. I feel like Candyman, I do think it is a lot more popular than Jacob's Ladder. I think it is a lot more well known than Jacob's Ladder. That being said, I do also think that, again, comparing it to the other slashers, is probably the least well known out of the big slashers. So I think just because of that, I think putting it as part of the collection would honestly be great. I feel like this is one that's kind of right up their alley. Honestly, I think just have it there. Special features. Maybe some Tony Todd stuff. That'd be great. And just like how the filming was, because they did film in that village. I forget what the village is called, the Greenville Village or Greenwich Village, or wherever they filmed. They talk about the behind the scenes behind the dam, like how they actually had to hire the local gangs to like protect them, and why they also became extras in the movie. Like, you could have a bunch of discussions about that. I think that'd be great. So honestly, I think Candyman is one that really would benefit from being as part of the collection. And next up, from 1994, we have Alright, from 1994, we have Serial Mom. So, Frank Waters, he's somebody who's like, he is on the collection. He has a bunch of movies in the collection. And I think Serial Mom is probably his most appealing movie out of the bunch. Like, compared to like Pink Flamingos, compared to some of his other movies, I think this is likely his most accessible movie across the board. Whereas, all those other films are a lot more cultish and a lot more, I don't know, fetishy, if that makes sense, or even in some cases a lot more disgusting. Serial Mom, there's interviews with Serial Mom in regards to them saying that, like, yeah, it's like us actually finally playing with the mainstream. So I think this would be one that'd be really cool, just having Serial Mom. And Serial Mom is kind of a wild movie in its own right. You literally have her killing somebody with a chicken bone. What is that about? So I think Serial Mom being on the collection would actually be good. Have a few more Frank Waters interviews to go along with it, some making of documentaries, and kind of just go from there. I don't think they really have to do anything too crazy with this, to be honest with you. I think that just, your basic bare bones, commentaries, few special features, interviews, and whatever, and just kind of go with it. I almost compare it to Eating Raoul. I know that's not Frank Waters, but I almost compare it to like Eating Raoul, like just in that same vein of just like random 80s, 90s horror movies that just got very big, very popular. Like, they could do something similar to that. Honestly, I think Killer Clowns could fall in that same trajectory, now I think about it. So, and they have a lot of Frank Waters, so just why not one more Frank Waters stuff there? Go ahead, Serial Mom. Next up, we have from 1996. We all know which one it is. It is Scream. So, again, you can't talk about slashers without talking about Halloween, without talking about Psycho, And without talking about Scream. There's a reason why there is such a resurgence of slashers in the 90s, in the late 90s and early 2000s. It's because of Scream. I mean, I don't really know what else I need to say, aside from the fact that it's like similar to Halloween. What else do you want me to say? It's Halloween. Just put it in the collection. It's Scream. Put it in the collection. I mean, you could definitely have some documentaries, special features on how Scream has influenced media, pop culture in the past 30 years almost, actually, now I think about it. In the past 30 years, now I think about it. So you could definitely do a documentary on that and just all that. Maybe kind of an interesting special feature, and I'm not sure if they've done this on other stuff, because I don't think this usually happens to begin with, if I'm being honest with you. But honestly, one thing they could do that's very interesting for a special feature is maybe have the pilot episode of the Scream TV series there, honestly, or maybe just the whole first season. Honestly, I think that would be kind of an interesting special feature right there. I mean, there's only about 10 episodes in the first season. I think the entire show is only about 25 to 30 episodes total, so maybe they could do something like that. But I think the pilot episode alone would be good, and I think that'd be a very interesting special feature. Again, I like, that's the thing, I don't know how many movies have been turned into TV shows afterwards, so I don't think that's a special feature they would often do. But if they're gonna do it with this one, and that'd be kind of an interesting special feature right there, just the first pilot episode of the Scream TV series. All right, next up, from 1999, we have From 1999, we have Bringing Out the Dead. So yeah, Bringing Out the Dead. So similar to Hitchcock, similar to Frank Waters, Scorsese, especially Scorsese, is one of those filmmakers that's just seen time and time again across the collection. So much so that he even has his own little series of movies from around the world that you could buy as collections. Each one, I think it's like 3 or 4 of them. And each collection has like 5 or 6 movies from movies around the world that they don't have their own individual release, but they're part of this collection. Like, that's how much Martin Scorsese is in this collection. That's how much he's influenced Criterion. And this is arguably like I'm pretty sure this is his only straight horror movie. Like just straight up horror movie. It would be Bringing Out the Dead. For this one, I don't think they have to go too crazy with it. Again, just do something similar to what I said for Serial Mom or Killer Clowns, like what they did for the others. Just your basic commentary, a few behind-the-scenes stuff, and that's it. Like, I don't really think you need to go that big with this one, if I'm being honest with you. It's not that pinnacle of a movie that you have to do like so many extra stuff with it. But I feel just the fact that this is a Martin Scorsese movie, and his only horror movie at that, like straight horror movie, unless I'm like completely forgetting something. Alice Doesn't Live Here, that's not a horror movie, is it? Like, that's not randomly a horror movie, is it? Like, I guess you could argue like Taxi Driver, maybe, but not really, But like this being his like sole straight horror movie. Well, no, he has Shutter Island. What am I saying? He has Shutter Island. But I would say even Shutter Island. No, here's the thing. Shutter Island, I think, is very much well known. Bringing Out the Dead, I feel like that's one also that's kind of forgotten in terms of Scorsese's filmography. On top of that, so just because of that alone too, just have it out there. People will pick it up, especially because it's Scorsese. People will pick it up, discover it, and enjoy it more, and it will bring its stock up. Next up, we jump into next up, we skip the 2000s entirely and go straight into 2010. So yeah, we go from 1999 to 2010, and from 2010 we have From 2010, we have Black Swan, and I think this is one of these horror movies that has definitely aged like fine wine in the past 15, almost 16 years that's been out. I mean, this got nominated for an Oscar. It won Natalie Portman the Academy Award for Best Actress. She won it for Black Swan. This was nominated for Best Picture. This was nominated for several awards in the Academy Awards. Again, we always talk about like, oh, why isn't horror represented in like the big categories? Best Picture, Directing, Actor, Actress, and Screenplay. This is one of those movies where it was recognized in those categories. So I think just because of that alone and because of the impact it's had over time, I think that alone should qualify for being part of the Criterion Collection. I also do think that, even though I just said its impact over time, I also do feel that to a certain degree, its impact is slowly starting to dwindle at the same time. So I think putting it on the Criterion Collection will kind of give it this boost. And you can definitely put some like ballet documentaries on top of that, like the making of the Black Swan dance and all that type of stuff. You could definitely have like some stuff, and like maybe people even having a documentary on the actual play of the Black Swan and discussing that and the themes in correlation with the Black Swan movie, Swan Lake, or is it Black Swan, Swan Lake? The show that they're trying to the opera they're trying to put on in the film. I think you could definitely do something like that. And on top of that, I don't think there's any Aronofsky films in the collection. On top of that, not that I could think of. I mean, Mother's definitely not there. The Fighter, is The Fighter even Aronofsky? The Wrestler is not there. So like on top of that, I don't even think there's any other Noah's Ark. Is that Aronofsky as well? No, is that Aronofsky? I don't remember right now, but like that's the other thing. I think having Aronofsky just randomly in the collection would be cool, and I think this would be his best shot at being in the collection. Yeah, I mean, again, this is one you don't really have to do too much for. Maybe a few ballet documentaries and maybe some commentary on how Swan Princess and how that the actual show of Swan Princess kind of relates to Black Swan and all of that. I think that'd be cool, but past that, I don't really think you have to go that buck wild with it. Although I would say a nice slipcover for the 4K will be great. I think I would enjoy that. I think they could do a very nice slipcover for the 4K. All right, next up from the next year, 2011, we have Cabin in the Woods. I think out of any horror movie here, this is probably the horror movie that's distills the essence of a horror movie the most. And I think for that alone, because of that alone, Cabin in the Woods should be here. I feel like it's also one that's similar to Black Swan. Like for a time, Cabin in the Woods was very much enjoyed, and now it's not that it's not being enjoyed as much anymore, but I feel like it's starting to like dwindle. Its popularity is starting to dwindle. Not many people talk about it as much as they used to. So I feel like, again, giving it that boost by putting it on the Criterion channel will be great. Also, you could make a lot of crazy documentaries, because from the making of documentary, like there's so much making of documentaries. If you've seen a movie, you know exactly what I'm talking about. There's so many making of documentaries, from how they made the special effects to how they created even just the one individual scene of the facility being invaded by all the creatures and monsters. Like they could make a documentary of that scene alone, and kind of go from there. You know how Sigourney Weaver kind of got involved in this movie. I think that'd be great. And just even how it was originally supposed to be a tie-in for Left 4 Dead, the video game series. Maybe even have some commentary on that. There's so much stuff they could do with this movie if it was in the Criterion collection. That I think it'd be great, and I think people would definitely buy. Like, this is one of those movies, again, popular movie. People would go out and buy this Criterion in a heartbeat. Honestly. So definitely just have it in the collection. Again, I think past that, you don't really need to go too big for it. Although I think for this one, if you really want to go buck wild for it, I think this movie, out of any other movie here, I think this is one where you could almost go the Princess Bride treatment and have it be a digibook. I think this one could be very interesting as a digibook, honestly. More though, because I don't think any other movie here will make sense as a digibook. I don't know, maybe Nosferatu. I think a Nosferatu digibook would be pretty cool, honestly. Maybe Nosferatu is maybe the only other one I will consider giving a digibook to. Halloween has its own digibook, which I've been trying to buy for some time, and I just don't have any luck. Every time I find it, it's already sold out. So like Halloween has its own digibook. So I think like outside of like maybe Nosferatu, maybe Psycho, I think this is the only other movie that makes sense to like give it like that Princess Bride digibook treatment. Maybe Black Swan, that would be nice. I don't think they would do it for Black Swan, but for Black Swan that'd be pretty nice. All right, next up from this next one is also from 2011. Although I will preface by saying this, it's not really a horror movie, but for me it is one of the most horrific movies I've seen. It's really more of a crime thriller, but for me personally, it is one of the most horrific movies I've seen, and that is Silenced from 2011. This is a South Korean movie. Every time I can talk about this movie, I do. Again, for me, it's one of the most haunting, horrific movies I've ever seen, because it's based on real life events. There is a part of me that almost wants to compare it to like Silence of the Lambs, because it is kind of this crime thriller horror movie. Although even then, Silence of the Lambs is way more of a horror movie than Silenced is. That being said, just for me personally, this has to be one of the, if not the most horrific movies I've ever seen, because again, it's based on real life. For those who don't know, Silence, it's about these South Korean disabled schools who are being abused, like the students are being abused by the principal, if you catch my drift, abused. And just the whole commotion that happened behind it, and it's based on real events. Have that as a criterion, and then have a documentary, like go in deep with it, have an actual documentary on how this movie changed, like literally changed South Korean politics at the end of the day. Cause it's honestly, because of this movie, they actually changed South Korean politics to better protect the children of South Korea from abusers and pedophiles like that. Like that's how much of an impact this had. And it's a movie that nobody ever talks about it. Like, I've never heard anybody talk about this movie. One, it's a foreign film. Actually, is this the first foreign film on here? Well, no, Nosferatu, Caligari, those are foreign films, I guess. And Suspiria. So yeah, so on top of that, that's also like, this is also one of the few foreign films I have in this, or international films. I actually have a few international films coming up, funny enough. But I think just because of that alone, just because of the actual real life impact, even beyond pop culture, Like, I know I was talking about Jaws and the whole blockbuster thing and how that influenced stuff. I know I was talking about The Omen and how that kind of has a connection to Final Destination, this side of the other. But in terms of like real life, actual like outside the movies, outside of entertainment, like when it comes to like the politics, I think just because of that alone and them having a real deep dive documentary about that afterwards, I think that would be just so impactful, so incredible. I think this is one that they would really need to go deep in with it. And honestly, I think the main reason they just haven't done this movie is because I don't think it's that well known. Like, straight up, I don't think it's that well known, despite how much of an impact it had. I feel it's one of those things, like, it's only well known if you're Korean, if you're from South Korea. Like, past that, like, this doesn't even have a release here in America. Like, that's the thing. Like, this movie, the only reason I saw it was because it was on Netflix. Even outside of Criterion, like if Arrow, if Shout Factory, if Kino, if any of these other boutique labels were to get silenced, I would buy that in a heartbeat. But I think Criterion will make the most sense. If they want to kind of cheap change it, maybe they could throw it on Janice, honestly. But like, whether it be on Criterion or whether it be on Janice, I think this is one that like kind of needs to be out there. Like, and it's honestly kind of a shame that it's not available in the US in any way, shape, or form aside from Netflix. Still, like, this is one that should be on physical media. Definitely not a horror movie by the most traditional sense, but for me, it is one of the most horrific movies I've ever seen because of its real life implications. And I know this is kind of such a stark contrast, given what we've been discussing with like slashers and killer sharks and Psycho and King Kong and all this. And now I guess it's like, and now I get very dramatic with these like real life stuff that affects children. But like, for me, one of the most, if not the most horrific movies I've ever seen, bar none. Next, from 2016, we have Train to Busan. So, okay, some more lighthearted stuff. Train to Busan. So, they do have some zombie movies on the Criterion Collection. The most iconic one being Night of the Living Dead. They also have I Walk with a Zombie, which is part of the Val Lewton Collection, a 2-movie Val Lewton Collection. So, they do have a few zombie movies. But I think when it comes to modern-day zombie movies, Train to Busan has to be the pinnacle one. It has to be the one that we all talk about. I mean, we do have other modern zombie horror movies like Zombieland, for example. I think that's another well-known one. Of course, stuff like Shaun of the Dead, and even more minor, low-key stuff like The Girl with All the Gifts and Maggie, which I talked about previously. I think those would make sense. I think Maggie would make a lot of sense, again, as part of the Janice collection. But again, if we're gonna talk straight zombie movies, as much as I love Zombieland, as much as I love Shaun of the Dead, let's be honest, Train to Busan deserves a release. Funny enough, similar to Silence from the year before, you can also talk about how Train to Busan had an effect on Korean culture. Not Korean politics, but Korean culture in general and just their pop culture and how that's bled into like the general pop culture. I mean, it's because of stuff like Train to Busan that we got something like #Alive, for example, you know? So I think that, like, even that, having that connection from zombie movie to zombie movie will be great. Even more so to that, I mean, here's the other thing. Train to Busan, it's not just Train to Busan. It's not like a single movie. Train to Busan is actually a trilogy of movies. It's technically the first movie, but the sequel is technically a prequel, and I'm not saying Peninsula. There's actually Seoul Station, an animated movie called Seoul Station. It came out like 2-3 weeks after Train to Busan came out. I think on like VOD or whatever. But that's actually a prequel to Train to Busan. And then Peninsula came out like, I don't know, 3-4 years later afterwards, and like during the pandemic. You can also do something like that. I think the most logical thing, because I think most people just ignore Peninsula. I'm not gonna say rightfully so. It's a fine movie. Peninsula is a fine movie, but like, again, just all the social messages, even similar to like Candyman, honestly, all the social messages and all that good stuff that Train to Busan has, Peninsula has none of that. But what I think they could do, which will make a lot of sense, is have Seoul Station at least. Have Seoul Station be like a special feature on this release. If they were to ever do a Train to Busan Criterion, have Seoul Station be like a bonus feature on it. Throw it on there, people know about it. It doesn't have to be that big. I know a lot of people don't like Seoul Station because there's a twist at the end that just a lot of people don't like. I actually didn't mind that twist at the end. I'm not going to spoil it, but I didn't really mind that twist, but I know a lot of people didn't like that twist. But like, I don't really think they should have Peninsula on as a bonus feature, but definitely Seoul Station, because at least people will look for Peninsula if they care for. Nobody's going to look for Seoul Station, so might as well just throw it as part of this collection. And of course I have a bunch of commentary as to how this affected pop culture in South Korea, especially because after that there's just a lot of Korean horror movies even after that, so you could definitely talk about that in general, which I think will be great. Alright, next up from 2017 we have A Ghost Story. And again, I think this is one of those releases that it will be very similar to the others. Just have it there, have a few bonus features, and just kind of go from there. Like, you really don't need to go that much with the Ghost Story. Again, I think this is similar to The Haunting, and even to a certain extent like Candyman, or even more so. similar to Jacob's Ladder, really similar to Jacob's Ladder. I think this is a movie that a lot of people know, and those who know it, like, really appreciate it, but by and large, not many people know it. It's just like those who know it really appreciate it, but those who don't know it, they haven't heard of it. Why would I watch this movie? It's called A Ghost Story. It sounds very generic, and not gonna lie, that is very much a generic title. I definitely think that this is one of those movies that will benefit from a boutique label releasing it, honestly, like, in general, because I don't think any boutique label has it on their repertoire, whether it be Criterion or Shout or Kino or Arrow or any of these other boutique labels. I don't think they have it. So I think putting A Ghost Story on collection, I think that would be a great boost to it. A lot more people will find it and just kind of go from there. And again, you don't have to go too crazy with it. Have some commentary, have maybe a documentary on the symbolism of the ghost itself. I think that would be pretty cool. Like some kind of commentary on that. And maybe the pie eating scene, that would be pretty interesting. Them talking about the pie eating scene. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. But past that, they don't really have to go that deep into this. I think this could be a very simple release. Again, similar to Bringing Out the Dead. Just have a very simple release. Nothing too special. Just your basic bells and whistles, and just kind of go from there. And I think this one is one that will very much benefit from that. Next up, from 2018, we have Hereditary. So yeah, if any movie has been snubbed across the board recently in terms of horror, it's Hereditary. I'll be honest, I don't think there's any special release of Hereditary across the board, funny enough. The only thing I could think of special release for Hereditary, I mean, maybe there's a few steelbooks there, and special slipcovers. The only true thing I could think of right off the top of my head that Hereditary has as a special release is this, like, 5-pack that A24 has with a bunch of other movies, which I actually have. So that's really the only other thing I can think of about Hereditary. So, like, I think this is one of those things that really needs its own personal, like, well-funded release. I think, like, even more so than A Ghost Story, where I think this is one you have to make something special for it. Definitely talk about, maybe have some commentary on, how this was supposed to be an Oscar contender movie and why it wasn't. Maybe have some commentary on that, because a lot of people say that Toni Collette should have won, not just been nominated, but should have won the Oscar for Best Actress that year. And I think that's one that, have that discussion, have an interview on that. I don't know, but, like, have that discussion and actually put it out there. I think that'd be a really great. Ari Aster probably has a few short films, honestly. So maybe put some, like, short films that he's done and just put that into a collection. I think that'd be cool. But, past that, just talk about the cults in the movie, and how they were formed and, like, the backstory behind the cult. I feel like that's something they could definitely do. I feel like Hereditary, that's one that there's going to be a lot of special features. If they ever do this one, it's one that's going to have a lot of special features, and I can't wait. I don't think it's ever going to happen soon. I don't think it's going to happen soon. Maybe they put it on the channel. If it's not already on the channel. Maybe they put it on the channel, but I don't think they're actually going to have a physical release of Hereditary soon. But if they are, this will be a great one. Alright, next up, from 2021. So we're down to the final three. From 2021, we have Mad God. So yeah, Phil Tippett is an absolute madman. Phil Tippett, he worked on this movie for like 30, 40 years. It's one of those movies, this was a passion project. And here's the other thing. They don't have that many animated movies on Criterion across the board. They only have about like 8 movies. It's quite literally like WALL-E, Fantastic Planet, Watership Down, I Love the Dogs, and Fantastic Mr. Fox, and like 3 more movies I don't remember right now. Like, sure, like they do not have any animated, like they barely have any animated movies. So on top of that, not only are you covering the horror genre, but you're also covering the animation genre. And I think that would be like having Mad God on the Criterion Collection will be such a wild thing. Like straight up, that'd be one of the most wild things. I saw Mad God when it first came out, and I'll be honest, I did not understand a single thing that was happening in that movie, because it is just that shit insane. It's just that batshit insane of a movie. But 100%, if they were to release this on Criterion, I would buy that 100% in a heartbeat, for sure, because that is just such a crazy movie. It's one of those movies that you kind of just have to sit back, relax, and just watch the visuals after a while, because realistically, you're never gonna make sense of this movie at all. Like, the special features for this really should just be like, how did Phil Tippett, how did he assemble this across 30 years? Like, what was the madness and the logic behind some of these visions, and what was he thinking, what was he doing throughout these 30 years? And there's stories about this, like how there was a time where he kind of just stopped working on this project because he just ran out of money, and how he was just so depressed by it. But then when he came back to it, he had, I forget if it's like his students, or he did like a casting call for people to help him, or something like that. But he had people help him after a while, and that's why the film was done. And again, like, it is such an insane thing if you look at behind the scenes of this movie. So like, definitely, I think this one will be such a fun addition to the collection, especially because it's animated, similar to Rocky Horror, where like, hey, let's throw in another genre outside of horror. Here we go. You know, with Rocky Horror, it was horror musical. Here we have horror animation. Throw it on there. I think that'd be insane. It'd be great. I think it'd be great. I honestly think it would be great. Next up, from last year, 2024, we have The Substance, my favorite movie of last year, honestly, like, straight up, it was my favorite movie of last year, and I'm still gonna say it, Demi got robbed. Demi should have won for the Oscar. I don't care, and I'm not gonna lie, the fact that Honora got into the Criterion Collection and The Substance didn't, it's kind of insulting. I'm not gonna lie, like, I feel like, maybe it's just me, but I feel like there's a very much intricate connection now between Honora and The Substance, and I've had discussions with this with other people, and a lot of people feel like that, even if they agree, even if they agree with Mikey Madison winning, which I don't agree, but even if they agree with Mikey Madison winning the Oscar for Best Actress over Demi Moore, a lot of people seem to agree that there is this intricate connection between Honora and The Substance now because of how things played out in general, because of the discussions that people were having about this movie in general. So because of that, I think if we're going to have Honora in the collection, you might as well have The Substance. I think the main reason they don't have The Substance as part of the collection is because Mubi has their own release, their own version of this, which is more in-house. Now, that's not to say that other companies can't be part of the collection. I mean, Netflix has that, but the other thing with Netflix is that they don't typically release their own movies on physical media, and the only reason stuff like Marriage Story, for example, got onto Criterion is because it was that good. So, I mean, honestly, I genuinely do think that The Substance should be on Criterion. I think it's also, especially for modern day horror movies, I think it is one of the best ones, it's definitely one of the best ones of the past 5 years. I mean, similar to Black Swan, similar to even something like Shape of Water, which is on the collection. It's one of these horror movies that did break through into the mainstream. It broke through into the awards conversation left, right, and center. It won Best Makeup. So I think because of just all that, and, you know, Demi Moore's return, you could definitely have a documentary or a special feature of Demi Moore just talking about what this film meant to her. I think you could definitely have a bunch of stuff in regards to this. Honestly, maybe even add Revenge as a special feature. So that is the director, not Celine Song. I forget the director. Not Celine Sciamma. I'm forgetting her name right now. But, you know, there you go. But that is the film that the director did even before The Substance. And Revenge, that's one that a lot of people also like. So maybe have that, include that as a bonus feature, and you just get two for the price of one. I think this is one of those things that they really should do. And again, maybe I'm just being a little bit more petty by including Honora as part of this reason. But if Honora's gonna get a inclusion in the collection, you might as well have The Substance in there as well. That's just me. And then the last film we have is actually from this year, from 2025. Can you take a guess? It's... yeah, it's Sinners. It's Sinners. I mean, I literally just saw it for the first time a few days ago. And honestly, if this got a Criterion Collection release by the end of the year or early next year, I would not be surprised. Like, I genuinely would not be surprised if this gets a Criterion release within, like, the next year, straight up, because of just how fantastic this movie is. I mean, it's, again, similar to Candyman in this respect. It's something that talks about the erasure of black culture over time, and in this case, it talks about it in with a sense of music, what music means to this population, to these people, and not even just like African music, but also like Irish music, and just like the Irish ancestry of Remick, the main antagonist in this movie. Like you could find so many video essays online just discussing like the actual background of each of these characters and how that influenced the film, and how Ryan Coogler he did so much research on this movie to make this movie. You can even talk about the aspect ratios and the film stock he used, because that's stuff that people are discussing right now. Like, there's so much you could discuss about this movie that you could put it here as bonus features, whether that be in the commentary, whether that be behind the scenes featurettes and documentaries or whatever have you. Like, just put all of that in the special feature. I think doing all that would be just fantastic. I think it would be great, and people would definitely eat that up in a heartbeat. I think people would love this in general. Again, I know it's kind of wild to put a movie from this year, but when the movie is that fantastic, when it's one of the first movies to actually get Oscar buzz, saying that, oh, it could win, like not just be nominated, but possibly win Best Picture, it could win Best Director. Michael B. Jordan could win an Oscar for his portrayal of the Smokestack Twins. Even Delroy Lindo being nominated for Best Supporting Actor, especially after The Five Bloods, which he should have been nominated for, by the way. Have him be nominated for this, for Sinners, like, that'd be great. The screenplay, the music, the songs, you know, like, that one scene, we all know which scene, the one scene in the porn where, you know, it revolves around not the concert, but, like, the bar. You're just seeing all these different facets of music back from the old days to the future, which will be modern day for us. Like, just that scene alone, you can make a whole documentary on it, and it'd be fantastic. I definitely do think this is one that would be great on the collection. It's one that I definitely do think, like, if it's not out by next year, I'd actually be kind of shocked if it's not out by next year. Yeah, I mean, I think this is one that really does deserve to be in the collection, and it's one that's definitely one of the more defining horror movies of the decade. I know we're about to end the 5th year of this decade from 2020 to 2025, but I definitely do think, similar to The Substance, this is one of those defining horror movies of the decade. And just because of that alone, I definitely do think it should be on the collection. On top of that, it's also a vampire movie. How many vampire movies do we even have in the collection? On top of that, like, we don't have Nosferatu, we don't have Dracula. I can't think of a single. If there are, there's a response, but I can't think of any vampire movies in the collection, so you might as well add it there too. I mean, honestly, I think this is one that they could do something very special for. It'd be great. It'd be great. So yeah, just one last time, here's the list of all the movies I think that should be in the Criterion collection. Honestly, I think this is a really great list. I mean, again, like I said in the beginning of the video, some of these exclusions come down to either me not having seen the movie in question, or me just simply believing that I don't think it should be part of the collection. You know, I could throw in some honorable mentions here and there, like, let's say Misery or Shutter Island, perhaps, you know, something like that. But realistically, I think this is kind of a definitive list of stuff that should be on the collection. We have a great expansive list going from 1920 to 2025. We have all different types of genres, whether it be psychological crime dramas like Silence, or psychological thrillers like Jacob's Ladder. We have slashers from Psycho to Scream to Halloween, the silent films with the Golem, Nosferatu, and Caligari, to modern day stuff like Sinners and The Substance and Mad God, animation with Mad God, musicals with Rocky Horror Picture Show. Like, I feel like we have a good mix of a lot of different genres and stuff that could be included here, from slow burn stuff like A Ghost Story to just the most fast-paced stuff like American Werewolf in London. I think we have a great mix of stuff, and I think it's great. And again, some of these you could go very simple with that, you know, just your basic commentary, and that's it. And some of these stuff you could go really special with it. But I think across the board, these would be some great additions into the Criterion collection for us to physically buy them, physically get them, physically watch them on our TV, physically add them to our collection right there, and kind of just go from there. I think that'd be great. And yeah, these are the movies I would pick. Now, stay tuned for next week, where I'm going to talk about collections. So for next week, I'm going to talk about 15 different collections, so groups of movies that should be on the collection. And there I'll talk, just to give you a sneak peek, I'll talk about something like Aliens. I know I talked about Predator here. I'll talk about something like Aliens there next week, just to give you a sneak peek. I'll talk about the Universal monsters next week, just to give you an example there. But yeah, that's basically it for now. If you have any other ideas of what horror movies should be in the Criterion collection, comment all that down below, let me know. And yeah, that's basically it for now. This is Daniel Mart, signing off.